All right, here's 1.4 day 2. In this video, I'm talking about average rate of change. So we talked about in Algebra 1, if it was a straight solid line, your average rate of change would also be called your slope. But in Algebra 2 and beyond, we've got more than just a line. For example, here we've got a quadratic-y looking thing, maybe not quite a quadratic, doesn't look very symmetric, but we've got this curve of some sort. And so when we talk about average rates of change, we're talking about the difference between this point and this point. Well, if I draw a line between those 2 points, we call that line a secant line. And so the average rate of change is just the slope of the secant line that goes through those 2 points. And notice your formula is the same as it was in Algebra 1. This is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. But since we're talking about functions, we write it all fancy function-like. All right, let's look at a problem. So here we are trying to evaluate this function here over this interval. Remember, when we talk about interval, we're talking about x values. Here's x1, x2. That's a little messy. x2. And we're trying to find out what's the average rate of change. That formula we just said was f of x2, which is f of negative 1. So f of x2 minus f of x1 all over x2 minus x1. So in order to figure this out, we have to figure out what is f of negative 1, what is f of negative 2. What are the y values of this function at negative 1 and at negative 2? To evaluate these functions, we're just plugging in these x values into the function that we have up here. So this would be negative times negative 1 cubed plus 3 times negative 1. And the second one would be negative times negative 2 cubed plus 3 times negative 2. All right, when we plug in that negative 1, we've got negative 1 cubed, which is negative 1, times another negative 1 would be positive 1. 3 times negative 1 is minus 3, so that's negative 2. For f of negative 2, I've got negative 2 times negative 2 is 4, times the third negative 2 would be negative 8, times the negative makes it positive 8. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. 8 minus 6 is 2. So now we take the f of negative 1, which is negative 2, minus f of negative 2, which is positive 2, all over negative 1. The minus 2 makes it plus 2. Negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4. 2 minus 1 is 1. So this guy just equals negative 4. All right, let's do the same thing, but now our interval is 0 to 1. So I want f of 1 minus f of 0 all over 1 minus 0. In order to solve that, I need to know what is f of 1 and what is f of 0. So we're going to plug in 1 and get minus 1 cubed plus 3 times 1. And f of 0, which is minus 0 cubed plus 3 times 0. All right, negative 1 cubed is negative 1. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. Down here I got 0 cubed plus 3 times 0. This is just going to be 0. So up here we got 2, which is f of 1, minus 0, all over 1 minus 0. That becomes 2 over 1, which is 2. So there's your rates of change. So let's practice 2 more problems. I'm going to do 5a by hand. And 5b we'll put into the calculator. So for 5a, I've got f of 3 minus f of 2 all over 3 minus 2. f of 3 would be 3 cubed minus 2 times 3 squared minus 3 times 3 plus 2. f of 2 would be 2 cubed minus 2 times 2 squared minus 3 times 2 plus 2. So let's put these guys into our calculator. So we want just a plain old graphing calculator page. Just a regular calculator page, here we go. So we want 3 cubed. A little smaller. This one. All right, 3 cubed. And then get out of your exponent there. And then minus 2 times 3 squared. Minus 2 times 3 squared. Minus 3 times 3. And then plus 2. Notice if there's not negative, you don't need any parentheses up there. And it's going to spit out the answer for us, which is 2. We're going to do the same thing. This time we're going to change all those 3's to 2. So if you want to, you can come up here, do Control C for copy. Go back down to where you were before. Do Control V for paste. And now we can go change all those 3's and make them 2's. I'm not sure that this was any faster, but they're showing you something you can do. When we hit enter, it tells us that's negative 4. So up here, I've got positive 2 minus a minus 4 all over 3 minus 2, which is 1. 2 minus a minus 4 is really 2 plus 4, which would be 6. All right, that's it for 5A. That's the kind of work that I would expect to see on your paper. But if you are taking say a PSAT on October 10th, and they had a question like this on your test, you could use your calculator all the way to do it. So I'm going to show you a nice little feature of your calculator. We're going to plug this function into our calculator without this part here. And then we're going to evaluate it. So we've got f of x equals, so that's what I want to write in here, f of x. And then we have to do a special equal. So we're going to do control, and you look at this number right by 9, that button there. Notice this is semicolon equals. And we got x to the 4th. Whoops. I don't know why this is giving me such trouble today. So x to the 4th. And then we've got minus 6x squared. And then we have plus 4x. So if I ask you to show me your work, this isn't going to work, but like I said, for standardized test, it will. And if you hit enter, it's going to tell you done. So what you just told your calculator is, hey, this is what my f of x function is. So now I can use that. I don't have to type it in over and over again. What we're trying to find here, I need this part now. We need to find f of negative 3 minus f of negative 5 all over negative 3 minus a minus 5. This is what I want to find, so this is what I'm going to put into the calculator. It knows what f is, so it's going to do all the calculations for me. So here we've got f, and I'm going to put it in parentheses because I need it to be in the numerator. So f of negative 3 minus f of negative 5. And that's all in my numerator, so it's got to be in its own set of parentheses, divided by. On the bottom, in its own set of parentheses, I've got negative 3 minus negative 5. You could have changed that and made it negative 3 plus 5 since you already know what that is. I hit enter, and it does all of the work for me. It tells me the answer is negative 220, which is the answer to this problem. So if you're on a PreCalculus type of test, on a PSAT kind of test, it's not my test where I'm asking for work. That's a quick way to get it into your calculator, get a quicker answer than doing it by hand, and then you can move on with the rest of your test. So that works for standardized, not so much for mine. All right, if you're in Pre-AP, you do not have to look any further. If you are not in Pre-AP, you don't have to watch any further, but if you are, we're going to keep going. If you are an academic and you want to keep watching, it's not going to hurt you, like I said on the last one. We just have some word problems here. So the height of an object that is thrown straight up from a height of 4 feet above the ground is given by this function, where t is the time in seconds. Find and interpret the average speed of the object from 1.25 to 1.75 seconds. So here we go. What we're trying to find, I guess I could do that, h of 1.75 minus h of 1.25 all over 1.75 minus 1.25. So let's go test that calculator trick out again. It's not really a trick, it's just a feature of the calculator. So h of x, or let's make it h of t, see if the calculator will enjoy that. Remember, it's control and the button right next to 9 gives me the semicolon equals. And then what's our function? Negative 16t squared, t squared. I don't want t squared squared. And then plus 30t plus 4. Hit enter. It says done. So now it knows what h of t is. We want it to find h of 1.75 minus h of 1.25. And we want to divide that by, and then I got 1.75 minus 1.25, hopefully you see that 0.5, but you can plug in 1.75 minus 1.25. And we get an answer of negative 18. So this would be negative 18 feet per second. And so those are your notes for 1.4 day 2, average rate of change. Hopefully that helps you with your homework. If you have questions, feel free to comment to tutorials. Tuesdays, Thursdays, A and B lunch. Friday, B lunch only.